And I was once a dead man, a stranger with no home. I stood opposed to God himself, and yet he pardoned me.
DMC-Productions presents Mercenary Metal Radio. Freedom for all. Death to the tyrants. Foreign policy.
Mercenary Metal Radio for Monday, July the 6th. Hope you guys catch that. I changed the name. It's Mercenary Metal Radio. The Death Metal Chronicles thing is now Productions, so I hope you guys enjoy that, because I just decided to do it, so screw everybody else. Our radio show podcast is on foreign policy, bands, metal, math rock, hardcore, whatever you guys kind of want to discuss along those lines. I was watching a video on CNN from Robert Baer, which I've included in the show to turn it into a video type of show, with some clips at least. Kind of like the Unfiltered show. What Robert Baer was talking about is the fact that So Robert Baer was a senior official at CIA for, I think, about 26 years, and probably a consultant for another 10 or 15 years, who even knows that part.
It's very common. I think what we've got to pay attention to is these people are believers. They are willing to give up their lives in this war, and they look at the world as us and them, and these little children you see that are are goading the, going along with this, are also agreeing to become suicide bombers. And I think, in fact, that the Islamic State wouldn't mind some sort of offensive this summer led by the West, and they can say, look, just as we told you, the West is out to destroy us. So as I agree with Mike, this is an enemy that's going to be around for a long time. It's a virus that's going to be very difficult to kill, because it's going to pop up in different parts of the world. And they're almost begging for the United States to put ground troops so that they can have a real enemy that they can fight and get more recruits.
And Bob, they have made extraordinary use of technology with a camera, some editing gear, and the internet. They're terrorizing the world. So why can't we shut them down?
You can't shut them down because they're sophisticated. They're using mobile Wi-Fi. They'll stop in the desert, take a shot at a satellite, upload their images, and that's the way they communicate. And they'll be up for 40 minutes, and they have found holes in the National Security Agency and the Cyber Command's defenses, and they understand this. And they've been reading Snowden. It's just a matter of, these people are very sophisticated. They know what they're doing, and we simply can't close them down in cyber warfare.
You said something last night that resonated to a lot of people, where you talked about the psychology of ISIS. You said basically that these guys were psychotic. What can you tell us about the mind of an ISIS fighter?
Well, they're looking at this as a clash of civilizations. I spent a lot of time in Israeli prisons talking to suicide bombers. And they look at it, we have to kill Israeli children and women, because they will grow up to produce more soldiers, and we have to exterminate them all. It's very close to fascism, and they simply don't care. And these losses we're inflicting on them, and we are from the air. But at the end of the day, they look at it, they're producing martyrs, and they're simply going to recruit more. So it's much
and
more
he was one of the guys who was charged in his team of trying to assassinate Saddam Hussein in 2000 or maybe 94 or something like that. I forget the time period of when he attempted to kill him. On CNN, in the segment, he's talking about the fact that it's not really possible to win over ISIS overseas with the way that we're trying to go about doing it. Now, he doesn't exactly give any responses on how America can defeat ISIS. I go for what Robert Baer says because of the fact that his foreign policy is not the foreign policy of the powers that be. The powers that be want to consistently keep giving money to Middle Eastern oil tycoons and hope that that solves the problem by paying their kingdoms money so that America can keep getting their oil, such as the royal Saudi family, which I had even no clue that the freaking Saudi embassy was like down the street in like Falls Church in between Vienna and Fairfax, Virginia. I just took a wrong turn and it took me right by the embassy. I was like, oh shit, okay, that's kind of cool. It was a big giant building, whatever. There's like, it's really weird. It's like on a like behind something on like a corner. It's kind of a weird place for it to be. I was like, this is odd. But you know, we give all these people money, you know, or buy their oil from them, in which their populace is the enemy. I mean, if 11 of the hijackers, supposedly, if 9/11 actually happened, 9/11 truth, if it actually happened the way it supposedly it said it happened, well, then we shouldn't give money to Saudi Arabia or even buy any of their oil. We should just completely cut them off, let them die, and, you know, let their economy completely implode, because they don't export anything else of value, really. But the difference is that they literally control the economies of everybody around the world. If Saudi Arabia, Iran, whoever just decides not to export oil, which I don't know what the number is today. In the earlier 2000s, when Robert Baer put out his book, Sleeping with the Devil, he talked about the fact that, you know, if Saudi Arabia or Iran stops production for one day, they can literally send the price of a barrel of oil to $500, which would entirely cripple the United States and the UK government. So it kind of explains a little bit why the foreign policy of the nation is what it is. It's in the government's best interest to keep a stranglehold on places like Afghanistan, which export natural gas, and also put in a pipeline through Afghanistan. I forget where that pipeline goes from and to. It probably goes through Turkey or up to Kazakhstan or Kazakhstan. I'm not really sure which of the stands it goes through, but you know, that's one of the reasons why we're there. There can't possibly be other reasons. Because, I mean, no one really cares about Afghanistan. There's not like a really reason to be there other than oil and natural gas and the economies of the other Gulf states. I mean, it's collusion entirely. I hope you guys enjoyed the band that I put in the podcast. That band is Wolves at the Gate. They're from Columbus, Ohio, and some other towns in Ohio. I saw them in Virginia with War of Ages, and I think the Breather was there, maybe? I'm not sure. I went to 2 different concerts with them. They're really cool. They've got about 4 albums so far. Definitely check it. I think they're on tour right now with Emery. I have to find out if they are or not. I think they were on tour with Emery, Classic Crime, and somebody else. I forget. They were on multiple tours this year. They're really cool dudes. You just talk to them. They're just decent people, as opposed to some of the artists that I've met so far, which are complete shitbags. They think too highly of themselves and just aren't open to conversation. So that band's really cool. You guys can check them out. They have a new album that's already out. That came out earlier this year. I forget the name of it. But I'll link it in the show notes. Former CIA director, Mr. Morrell. What is his first name? Micheal Morrell. He was a deputy director, and he was talking about that I've linked inside the in the video itself with the actual video of it. I found it really interesting him talking openly and with his new, obviously he's plugging his book, but just talking openly about the fact that to say that the people that he commanded are war criminals in a sense of torturing. So what I infer from that is the fact that he was a deputy director in charge of the program, which Michael Scheuer was in charge of, which is the rendition program, which essentially would send any person extrajudicially to another country to be questioned. So the purpose of that is to separate them from their handlers, their overlords, whatever you want to call them, to separate them out. So they're from Egypt, you'd want to send them to Jordan. If they're from Jordan, you want to send them to Egypt or to Syria, Oman, wherever you want to get them away from the powers that be that control them. Because obviously, if they're in the same type of prison system there, then you can't really question them effectively. Michael Scheuer ran that program, I think, for about 11 years, and interestingly enough, he's completely against it, which I find is very heroic of Michael Scheuer. If you haven't read any of his books, you guys should read them. They're pretty epic. He's also a teacher at Georgetown or George Washington University as a foreign policy teacher. And what Micheal Morrell kind of goes through is the fact that to say that his guys were torturers because they're his guys or whatever. Well, okay, obviously this guy knows that inflicting pain in any sense is never really going to get the information that you want to get. Because someone who's trained how to resist that type of coercion is not going to submit to it. And if they do, they're going to submit and give you wrong information on purpose, because that's the job of intelligence. It's, smoke and mirrors. It's the whole point of it. Is to dissuade someone against the truth, to not allowing them to gain state secrets about your state that you live in. Or your organization, whether it be ISIS or the U.S. government or your contractor company. That element should be... But I find it interesting that Micheal Morrell isn't questioning outright the fact that the CIA is doing operations in places that America doesn't want to be. So he's not questioning the fact that it exists. He's just questioning the fact that people are calling out and saying that his guys are torturers. Well, what's bigger than the torturer problem? The bigger than the torturer problem is that America is in over 100-something countries and affecting their affecting their local governments. So whether it be in a South American country, say that we are pumping money to promote propaganda against whatever cause it would be. Say it's the socialists, say it's the communists or whoever, that they want, peasants' rights for people who don't own property and, they work at a farm. Well, America would then pump money into publicizing, aka the word propaganda, and publicize the fact that this is what's going on with this, so this other group should be antagonized to be against it. And using antagonization to affect that area. But why is America there? What purpose does it serve to be in that, say in Argentina, or Bolivia, Guatemala, Chile, Oman, Bahrain? So Micheal Morrell isn't questioning that. He's just, trying to defend his guys or whatever and not be, charged for a crime. Well, in any case, anybody who's taken is under coercion. So torture isn't even a word that we really need to focus on. We need to focus on coercion. So why is America there? If America detains someone in another country, they're being coerced against their own government to be imprisoned. So they're there not because of their own volition, they're there because you coerce them to be in that room. So anything that you derive from that conversation isn't admissible anyways in a real court, because it's obviously coerced. It's a coerced confession that's not done of their own volition to promote their health and well-being. They're just there. But you guys should definitely, watch the rest of the video and tell me what you guys think about Micheal Morrell. He's an interesting character. He's got that whole, like, pencil pusher thing, but the guy's been places, so he's like this dweeby kind of guy. It's just kind of weird to see a guy like that. Like, I don't know. it's odd. I found this really cool band. Uchu Kobayani, I think? I'll try to find them, and I'll play them in the next episode. They're a math rock band from Japan. They are freaking cool as hell. They could be singing about, like, drowning kitties, but it sounds fucking amazing. I have no clue what they're saying in Japanese, but it's some of the best math rock I've listened to in a long time. I'm definitely going to play them. They didn't email me back. I tried to email them about getting them on the show, but whether or not... They put their music out there. I don't think they're on a label anymore, so I'm just going to play it. If they pull me down, that's fine. It's on them. Definitely tell me what you guys think about the foreign policy of America right now. And should we stay in Afghanistan? Should the people who imprisoned people beyond their will be supported? Should America just have a draft and draft everybody and then invade all of the Middle East and destroy all the countries out there? You let me know. Tell me what you guys think. This has been Mercenary Metal Radio. You guys have a great evening.
I don't like calling it torture, right, for one simple reason. Because to call it torture says my guys were torturers, right? And they were told that they weren't. They were told that what they were doing was legal. And I'm going to defend my guys to my last breath.
When al-Qaeda terrorists attacked the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, Micheal Morrell was with President George W. Bush at an elementary school in Florida as the CIA's daily briefer. The events that unfolded on that fateful day are just some of the many national security emergencies the former acting director of the agency has been at the center of since 9/11. The veteran intelligence official has spent much of his 30-year career out of the public eye, but he's stepping out of the shadows to talk about his new book, The Great War of Our Time, the CIA's fight against terrorism from al-Qaeda to ISIS. Vice News caught up with Morrell at the Richard Nixon Library in Yorba Linda, California, and spoke with him about the Iraq War, the CIA's interrogation program, and what he refers to as the new era of terrorism.
So you've just written a book. You spent 30 years essentially keeping secrets.
Right.
And now you're writing it all down.
Yeah.
Why?
Why? A great question. I really debated this, right, with myself for a long time. You know, is it appropriate, right, for a former senior intelligence official to write a book? Certainly precedent, right, going back to Helms and Gates and Tenet, they all wrote books, but I still struggled with this. And at the end of the day, I decided to do it for 3 reasons. The first was that I really do believe that this threat we face from this particular kind of extremism is going to be with us for a long, long time. And I really thought it important that the American people understand the threat that we're facing, that it is going to be a generational one, and what it's going to take to have to deal with it. And I thought it was important for them to hear that from me. The second reason is there are a lot of myths out there about the agency. You know, one of the myths is that we're kind of James Bond-like. There's another myth out there that everything we touch, we screw up. And there's also this kind of Jason Bourne myth that we're a rogue agency, right? That we do things without the oversight of the president, without the oversight of Congress. Few agencies have the kind of oversight that CIA has. And I wanted to give people a better understanding of what the agency is all about and what it's like there. And then the third reason, which doesn't get talked about much in these kind of interviews, is that I do feel that it's the responsibility of former senior officials in government, and probably particularly former intelligence officials, to provide their perspectives to the public when they're done serving.
What is it like when you are acting director, when you're actually sitting in the seat?
It's a heck of a lot better than being deputy director. Right? You don't have to ask anybody for permission. You just do things, right?
Right. I mean, one of the things you say in your book is that in the aggregate, we got a lot of things right and we got some things wrong. I think there's an alternative view of the agency that says we get a lot of things wrong and we get a few things right. In the broad scope of your 30-year career, like, why do you think the ratios are one way and not another?
Let me give you an example, right? I grew up on the analytics side of the agency, and we produce the president's daily brief every day for the president, and in there we probably make 10, 12 analytic judgments a day, right? Big judgments. And we look at whether those judgments turn out to be right or wrong. We look at those judgments a year after we make them, and we say, were we right? Were we wrong? Can't we tell yet? Right? And our batting average is 75, 80%. Which is not bad, right? Look at a world